And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. And welcome to the University of Logic, better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversation. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and welcome. We have a big crew here tonight, don't we? We have some audience here tonight.
My gosh, did you pay these folks to be here or what?
Yeah. I tell you, you pay them enough, they'll show up. I'll tell you that. Amazing. Thank you guys for showing up. Well, all fans and employees, which is great. You know.
Oh, that's amazing.
You know, I have to admit that I got to the point this week where I had very, very little positive vibes. I mean, I just felt like I was going to get on the air and give that typical radio opening. Ladies and gentlemen, today, everything everywhere sucks, you know, and I felt that way. And I just didn't feel good. I just felt, you know, Mother Nature is going to get back at us because everything we seem to do is illogical, fattening, and something or other. You know, it's just not right. Everything we do is false, deceitful, and I can't take it anymore.
You looked at me when you said fattening. What was that look?
What happened?
What was that? That was a Freudian slip.
Oh, okay.
You know, what can I tell you? You know. Yeah. But seriously, and then I got some news that actually install some glee in me.
What's that?
And it was bad news.
Oh, it was
bad news. No, bad news, and I felt I was hopping around like I just said, this is great. I'm just like a kid at Christmas time. And this is the bad news.
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
General Motors.
Okay.
Toyota.
Yeah.
And Ford are closing all of their manufacturing plants in Australia. No. I know you say, well, geez, that's mean. I don't mean because I'm happy those guys losing their jobs. I'm happy because the principles of the market, you know, the free market system finally took bite because I have been really pissed off at those stupid Australians for saying, well, you know, here we pay $15 an hour, and you cheap SOBs there in the States only pay $7.20. You should be ashamed of yourself, you slime balls. And basically, that's what they came out and said. And I'm saying, you know, well, how do they get away with that? And it just bothers me. Now, don't get me wrong. If I had a company, I could pay somebody $40 an hour. I'd be more than happy to pay him $40 an hour, you know. But it didn't make any sense at all. Well, GM, Ford, and Toyota came out with an announcement and said, we have to admit that it cost us twice as much to produce a car in Australia than it does in the EU. And the EU ain't cheap. All right? And 4 times as much as it cost in the third world countries, you know, like not third world, but like in the Far East and whatever.
Don't they just have Jeeps in Australia, though?
What's that?
Don't they just have Jeeps out there in Australia?
Oh, this guy's been watching too much television. Carry him away.
Yeah,
racial stereotype. Very nice.
Yeah,
very
that's
nice.
it.
Very nice.
No, seriously, but think about that. Now, people are like, well, you're so mean. No, you know, when you apply for a job, and then you sit there and the guy says, well, you seem like you have the qualifications for the job. And Bob, excuse me, now, let's get, how much would you like for us to pay you? No, what you do is you bring something to the company. And what you bring to the company determines what your pay will be. Now, if you are a PhD and you go to Walmart and you're going to be a checkout counter person, no, seriously, I'm not joking, right? They're not going to say, well, you got a PhD and you're a neuroscientist or whatever, and so we're going to start you off at $175,000 a year checking things out. So, you know, it's got to be what the job is worth, not what you are worth. Now, if you're worth that much, don't apply for a job at Walmart. Now, the people who apply for a job at Walmart, I said, if you're complaining about the $7.25, go somewhere else. It should be totally open market. That's how things are done. Let's make this simple. I'm going to make this really simple because my agent's here. He doesn't understand much.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I can't help that. I made a mistake. Anyway, let's go back to caveman times, all right? Let's go before the invention of the wheel. Before the invention of the wheel, right? Let's say you had a guy cut down a tree or limbs or something, and he sold that limb to a guy that was growing corn. And he'd say, I give you, here's one limb for one branch for a ear of corn, whatever it is, and some sort of voluntary exchange. And then all of a sudden, mankind, discovers the wheel. Now I got to let you down a secret. It wasn't a man; it was a girl.
Oh,
yeah. Her name was Lolita. I know her personally. Yeah, I used to date her. Hot chick.
I didn't know you were that old.
I know. It's a beautiful face. That's what happens. It's beautiful. No, so we'll get away from Lolita for a second because I think we're going to go off on a tangent. But so mankind invents the wheel. So all of a sudden, the guy builds a cart because he can put wood on the wheels and cart it off. So now he takes 10 pieces of wood instead of one, and he gives it to the guy, and he says, hey, yeah, I'm going to trade him for corn, right? And the guy says, I want 10 pieces of corn for my 10 branches. And the guy says, okay, that's fair. That's why I gave one before. Now, some other guy, usually my neighbor, would say, hey, wait a minute. This guy's not working very hard. All he does is knock down a few branches, throw it on a bed, right? And he carts it over,
and he's rolling it on wheels.
Yeah, rolling on wheels. He's got it easy. He takes the rest of the day off. I can do that, and I'll charge the guy half the number of ears of corn. Right? So all of a sudden, the price of everything goes down. Everything goes down. So now the guy who grows the corn has more wood for the same price, or for a lower price. But that's the thing that creates wealth. Something stupid like that. A simple caveman illustration, which is one that I made up, by the way. Don't look at any economics books. You won't find it, because they don't do anything that stupid, But that's the way it works. Bingo, very simple. And all of a sudden, Australia is losing it. And then I looked at the overall employment in Australia going down the tubes. They can't produce anything because everything is so damn expensive. Now, what they don't tell you, this is what really hacks me off about all these economists that think they know everything, is that they tell you, well, he makes $15 an hour, but they never tell you what the take-home pay is.
What is it?
Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah. But, if they said, well, in the United States, you make $7.25 an hour, your take-home pay is $4. But if you worked in Australia, you made $15 an hour, and your take-home pay was $12, I'd say they got a good point there. But I'll bet it's not half of the 15. I bet you may pretty well match what you take on with minimum wage pay. Anyway, I was just delighted that the free market bit someone in the rear. And maybe people will start waking up. Not that I'm happy that people are out of a job, but that whole country needs to wake up. You can't have it's not a free market economy. Not when the government says you have to pay the person. Listen, person sweeping the floor. I mean, the one that they were reluctant to give to me, sweeping the floor, I'm going to get paid $15 an hour. What do you pay someone who has talent and an education and does a critical job? What do you pay him or her or Lolita, whatever the case may be? I mean, think about that. So I mean, it was like, gratification, we got him, Anyway, I just felt that was worth it.
And what did they, I mean, you're using 15 as a figure of speech. You're not.
No, that was 15.
They're making $15
15 minimum wage.
Building cars?
No, minimum wage.
Oh, you mean in their economy, 15?
Yeah,
wage.
And of course, because the minimum wage is 15, the guy sweeping the floor is making 15, right? That means anybody who has any technical skills is getting paid all the way up there. And the guy in Japan or wherever, China and Korea, whatever, and Korea makes the best cars in the world now, by the way. Hyundai is the best car in the world. You look at Consumer Reports. And they build a car, and they're chasing Honda out of the business. And you think Australia all of a sudden now is going to can't compete.
If they do it for 15, why don't they just make it 30?
Why not?
I kind of wanted like 100 an hour. Can I do that?
Yeah.
And that's my point. Whenever I get in a conversation about the minimum wage, they go, I think it should be $7.50, and you got libertarians. I said, oh, no. You know, so I'm not a real libertarian. I think it should be $30 an hour.
Yeah.
And they go, what? You can't do that. I go, why not? I said, 15? Who can? I can't live on 15.
How about $10.10?
Well, I think something that's really interesting about it is they don't explain the whole process. If a car becomes $15, then on the rent in an apartment becomes like $1,000.
Absolutely.
Raising the minimum wage is a fancy way of saying inflation is going on. Yeah. So I mean.
Yeah, how much time we have before our break?
Just buying a few extra
Just 1 minute. Okay. By the way, I just want to mention that after our hard break around 7:35, we're going to have Matt Kellegrew. He's from the Bill of Rights Defense Committee. Oh. All right. We're going to talk about that. You know, the Bill of Rights is the first 10 Amendment to the Constitution. Yeah. And that should be really interesting. I'm excited about him being on there. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk about this gal who, anchor, that quit her job because of the Russian invasion. I think we have a lesson there. You know, I applaud her, by the way, but we have a lesson to learn there. Let's take our break now. You know, folks, the sponsors that our sponsors pay for this slot. And this slot is here because of our sponsors. If you think this station is worth, this program is worth it, I really hope that you do. A lot of work goes into it, believe it or not. I know you don't see what goes on in the background. And because of that, whenever you have an opportunity, please visit our sponsors. And when you do, tell them that you heard about them on Liberty Talk Radio. We're in this together. We are a community. And we need to support one another. Now, McCool's Firearms, for example, is one of our sponsors of three, right? And
real good people.
Yeah, really good people. I go there, and I'm a gun guy, you know. And I had this 380 with a trigger that was screwy up. Brought it in. We talked for.
Oh, you brought it back by? Yeah.
Yeah, I brought it back by the other day, and he's going to look. He said, "Let me take a look at it." I mean, no complaints. Like, here to buy this gun here. Wait, none of that crap. I mean, they work with you. So they're on 31st Street in Sheridan, you know, in that shopping center area. It's an old shopping
Sheridan
center.
Royal Shopping Center.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And but they're good. Dave there is the gunsmith. He's fantastic. He does everything.
He's one of the best in the region.
Anyway, but please do that. And anyway,
the Beetle.
We have to talk about the new place.
Yeah,
they're not even scheduled yet, but we ran them anyway. We love the Beetle. You go there all the time too.
No, I do. I go there now. The Green Beetle is at 79th and Memorial. Yeah. And it is, you know, they have camp supply, bug out supply work. But they have a knife collection. I'm not a knife guy. I got a few knives. I have a couple of friends that are really nice people.
Really do.
They have the best. Yeah. I mean, I've been to several places. The best knife collection. And in fact, what I brought with me today, you want to see?
Oh, I want to see it.
I have a stove. I had to buy this. I needed this like I needed him.
Hey, he's cooking the camera.
Can't be more than an ounce. Look at this. This is a stove.
Really?
You wouldn't believe it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
You can't see it here.
I don't believe you.
And it comes with little solid fuel pellets, you know, and it cooks a whole meal. I mean, can you imagine having something like this in your pocket? Save your life.
Joe, you know what I like about both of those sponsors are? When you go in there, they're expertise, but they don't make you feel like a dummy. You know, I'm not very good at guns and all that kind of stuff and the survival gear and stuff, but you ask questions and there's no dumb questions. They don't make you feel like you're a nut, you know, or like, hey, this guy's a novice, and I'm not going to give any time to him. That's what I like about this place. Yeah. They really take care of you and answer your questions.
Yeah, and of course, if you have any hearing problems, you go see Ranch Acres Audiology.
And
that's the big one.
That's the best one in the region.
That's my wife.
Go see my wife. Okay, she's doing.
Yeah. Well, someone did walk in and said, "I'm here because of Liberty Talk Radio" 2 months ago.
Wow.
They did. Okay. All right. Thank you. You understand what I'm saying. I want to make a comment about the gal. What was her name? Could someone help me with that? I wrote it down somewhere.
Lolita.
No, come on. What was her name? The gal at
the one that you rode in the motorcycle, jumped on the motorcycle. Which one are you talking about, Joe?
The gal who quit her job as anchor on
RTTV.
Because she did not agree with the manner in which Russia was handling the Ukraine crisis. Now, let me say this. I applaud her position, the guts that she had in doing what she did. Understand that. Now, here's my talking point. Where are our anchors? When is the last time you heard an American anchor say, I abhor the fact that the United States is dropping drone bombs on Yemen and refuse to allow us to report it? A friend of mine comes from Yemen. They are bombed every day. And he said, yet you never report that. Where are our news anchors? Where are those prostitutes? So I have to give this gap. Now, I'm not saying what she says is right or wrong. Probably there's an element of truth in what she says. How much, I have no way of telling. But yet we have our anchors mouthing what they're being told to say, and they know they can't be that stupid or that ignorant to say, oh, this is the absolute truth. Because if they had any element of respect, self-respect, every one of them would have quit by now.
If we had any element of self-respect, we would have stopped listening to them years ago.
Yeah, no, but they should have quit along and said, no, this is against my ethics. Right. But no, they all follow suit. If they tell them, whatever they tell them, they just mouth off. Yeah, I give this woman credit, whether she's right or wrong. I condemn every single anchor we have.
There is one on the internet. Her name is Amber Lyons. I think I showed you a picture of her the other day. She worked for CNN, and this was a couple years ago. And, she was reporting on a Middle East country, and that she was sent over on assignment to pick up a certain story. And you know what? It wasn't the story that CNN wanted to hear. She picked up a different line on the story that was opposite their view. She's gone. Yeah. She's now an alternative internet reporter, and she's awesome.
Yeah. Now, I have to turn. We're running out of time because our guest's going to be here in a second. But I want to talk, of course, Ukraine. Blah, 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 Ukraine. Folks, I'm sure I'm going to be asked about this, so I might as well talk about it. As far as I'm concerned, we have no place being anywhere near the Ukraine. A little history, just one little tidbit. Back in the early 1990s, we made an agreement with with Russia that we would not encroach upon the former countries of the Soviet Union. In other words, where NATO was, NATO would stop, and that would be it. Now, understand what NATO stands for. Is an attack on one, is an attack on all. And so we said, all right, we're NATO will probably stay the way it is, but, we want to just make sure everything starts running fine, because there's no more Warsaw Pact. There was no more Warsaw Pact, so there really was no need for NATO at all. But they kept NATO. Well, the United States kept NATO, right? Now, just to give you an idea, NATO, the NATO nations are Belgium, Canada, which makes no sense, Denmark, France, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Turkey, UK, and, of course, the United States. Now, since that time where we promised that we would not increase the involvement of NATO, since that time, here are the former Warsaw Pact nations that have joined NATO. Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia. And there are others filing for membership. Now, if you were Russia, would you be getting kind of nervous at this point? Especially after we committed ourselves to say, no more encroachment. We'll just let it go. The Cold War is over. And the problem is that we are still playing that, we don't say it, we're still playing that Cold War card.
Have we put military bases in those countries yet?
Oh, absolutely. We have military bases in many of those countries and on some countries which are literally bordering Russia. Now, you can imagine if Russia had a military base with missiles and whatever in Mexico or Canada.
Oh, Cuba.
World War III immediately. Well, they tried that in Cuba and it was World War III. You know, it's this one-sided, we can do whatever we want, screw everybody else. And it really ranks me. It really bothers me that we do that. It's so disingenuous. It's something that we shouldn't be doing. It's not right. My mother would tell me that's wrong.
You know, that's just like going down. Your mother would tell you, hey, stay out of that other block because that's their business.
Yeah.
You know, why are we over there? Why are we even why are we involved? It's the European Union and it's the Soviet Union. It's not the USA.
That's right.
Why are we even making a deal about it?
What bothers me also is that if you ask the common Americans that go, yeah, USA, you ask them, where is the Ukraine? They couldn't tell you. They say, I think it's near Kansas. They would have no idea. They're so dumb, right? Well, it's on the border. And the Ukraine has been part of that Russian culture now for centuries. And there's been, strife back and forth for centuries. And it's something we don't need to get involved in. Here's a little tidbit. Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, is closer to Moscow than Tulsa is to Houston. That's how close it is. I mean, we're talking about country. And also, here's another little tidbit. We got to go there soon because we have the guest coming on. But Crimea is actually it's a real strange situation. It's a quasi-independent state, part of the Ukraine Federation, if you will. And they have their own constitution, but they wanted to become part of something, and they became part of the Ukraine. And I don't pretend to understand their constitution exactly and what rights they have. So this test of being, independent may be perfectly legal. And if it's not, it's none of our business.
Amen.
None of our. If the Ukraine is our business, what would happen? Mexico's a mess.
Well, Mexico ought to be the U.S. arts business.
Well, look yeah. It's not. But the drug lords down there are running the place. There really is no government. It's run by the drug lords, of which we make the money on.
Well, the Russians ought to come over and straighten it out.
What if the Russians came over to Mexico to help the people in the streets who are suffering because of all these things? Help the people out. World War III.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we better wake up.
What is our motivation? What is the motivation of the United States to go over there and do this?
Didn't Obama say it's like a
to embarrass Obama? Because
it's very simple.
No, but he said it's a priority. Ukraine is a priority.
No, it's very simple. It's containment of Russia because we contain Russia. We control that part of the world. We control that part of the world. We control the pipeline. And by the way, the bottom line is money. Oil and gas. Oil and gas. They don't care about Russia, what Russia has, if it's a free economy, if it's Russia. They don't care. They're talking about money. It has to do with pipelines and gas. And the only way you can truly control that is if you contain Russia. Russia, China, and Iran are the three holdouts right now. And guess what? We're sort of pushing them right to the wall.
At some point, they'll bite back, won't they?
Oh, no. They don't have to bite back because our economy... Here's the.
They'll just walk across the border,
the hypocrisy. Right? We lent $1 billion to the Ukraine, which most likely we borrowed from Russia. Okay, now you start thinking about that, you not only get a headache, but your brain starts bleeding. Okay, that's the mess that we're in. We are a bankrupt nation, giving billions of dollars to other nations on a monthly basis. And we got a hell of a problem. Is it break time? It's break time. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back. I want to open up with this quip. The United States keeps on saying that, if so-and-so does this, we're going to impose sanctions. If you do this, we'll impose sanctions. How about this? How about they impose sanctions on us every time we screw up? Why don't they do that? Every time we bomb, every time we send a drone out and kill a few people in a wedding party and all this, the poor neighborhood, sanctions. Anyway, we have someone on the line. We have our guest, but we want to take this one caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Dennis from Tulsa.
Dennis, if you could make it really quick because we have a guest that we're already late talking with.
Well, yeah, I can make it quick. I thought it was good that you said, how many people could could point on a map and find Ukraine. If only 70% of the high school graduates in America can pinpoint where Washington, D.C. is, I wonder how many percent could figure out where Ukraine is or why it even matters. But, John Kerry just went over there with $1 billion check and handed it over to Ukraine, the rebellion over there, people that are fighting against Putin.
Right.
But why would John McCain go over there and stir it up in December and January? Why was he going over there and firing up a crowd when it was none of our business?
That's right.
Why are they destabilizing? Putin. You may not like him, but he's a good boy for Russia, and he is never going to let Stalingrad happen in Russia again. They were our allies in the Second World War when FDR let Stalingrad defend itself, and 1 million of their own citizens died for one city.
Right.
He's never going to let that happen. He's always going to have a safety zone.
Right. Crimea is
a safety zone. That's
right.
Where they vacation.
Absolutely.
He's sovereign. He's a sovereign country. He has to.
He's no saint. I mean, don't get me. I'm not saying. But when I was watching the Olympics, I looked at Putin standing there, and I said, this is horrible. If I say this on the air, I'm most likely going to lose my job. I'll never be on the air again. But I'll say it. I looked at him and I said, if I had to put a respectometer on me, I have more respect for that guy than I do for my own president. And that's never happened before.
Absolutely.
He's a good Russian.
He's a good Russian,
right.
He would do anything for Russia, just like you and I would do anything for America. It doesn't make us bad guys.
Yeah.
It's just, this is our home. This is our dirt. This is where we're going to be buried. And it's the same thing for him. He raised the power. He's not an aristocrat that came to power. This kid came from the streets.
That's right.
He rose up through the ranks because he did. He was a good KGB guy. He did what he was told. He never stabbed Yeltsin in the back. He was handed Russia because he was a good Russian.
Right.
And he's not trying to destroy Russia, as opposed to some other people that are in our White House right now. This guy's not trying to destroy Russia. He's trying to make it strong, one step at a time.
And I'll bet you, Dennis, he can supply a birth certificate. Dennis, we have to go. Thank you so much for calling, but our guest is waiting, and we're really past due on that. Thank you so much for calling in and listening to Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. Bye. Thank you, guy. Okay, can we put our guest on now? Beep, beep.
He's there.
All right. Matt, is that you?
Hey.
Matt?
Hey, I'm here.
Matt. All right. Matt Kellegrew is on the air, and he's with the Bill of Rights Defense Committee, BORDC. And, the Bill of Rights, folks, is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And, Matt, you must be busy.
I am, yeah.
What's going on?
Very.
What's hot? What's not?
Hot and not. Well, in the world of Bill of Rights right now, everything... all eyes are on the NSA. Currently.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not the only thing going on. We've got indefinite detention being threatened through the NDAA. That's the National Defense Authorization Act. We've got police departments all over the country trying to get surveillance drones, trying to expand the reach of what they can do with that kind of stuff. We've got, new forms of torture in violating the Eighth Amendment. None of the amendments to the Bill of Rights work necessarily on their own. They're a partnership with one another. So a threat to civil liberties in the Fourth Amendment and the right to be free from unwarranted search and seizure is going to implicate the right to freely associate. It's going to implicate the right to freely speak. And so, the Bill of Rights really works in harmony with itself. So a threat to one is really a threat to them all in that sense.
Well, Matt, let me ask you, excuse me, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want to forget this as we go along. Is what, from your perspective, is the attitude of police officers? Are they respecting the Constitution, or is it? Are they saying, screw the Constitution? I'm getting all this macho stuff. Screw Bobby's mother. I'll arrest her if she, jaywalks, or whatever the case may be. Where are they sensing what so many just average citizens are sensing, that we're losing our rights and there's a control going on that it looks very, very unhealthy?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I can't speak on behalf of individual police officers. You know what I mean? I think that it's like rank and file, work-a-day beat cops that are out in communities are not necessarily out there like looking to see which constitutional amendment they can violate next.
Right.
But the trend in policing, and this is a policy level. This isn't a decision that's made by workers,
okay,
people that are out doing the job. This is policy that's set elsewhere. Really does tend towards an increase in surveillance and a rejection of the Fourth Amendment, not on the cop level necessarily, but the drone issue when it comes to police departments is a really big one, and it sounds innocuous. I was just in Maryland earlier this week. Geez, I don't even know what time it is. I was in Maryland earlier this week to testify in favor of Maryland's Fourth Amendment Protection Act, which is very similar to the Oklahoma Privacy Protection Act. It's, in fact, part of the same campaign that the RDC worked on. I'm going to talk about that extensively in a minute. But right beforehand, there was an anti-drone bill in Maryland that was also, these things are being promoted everywhere. And the confusion on the part of a lot of the public is what's the difference between a drone and a helicopter? That if the police can have a helicopter and fly over your house, and that's been legal since the early 1980s, really, and the plain view doctrine, which is a legal standard that says that if a cop can see something from a public place, then that's not a search. That if it's visible in plain view, that doesn't count as a search. They don't need a warrant to look at something.
Yeah.
If that's been the law for decades, what's the difference between a drone and a helicopter? And that really betrays a lack of understanding about the true technology of drones. That drones, technologically speaking, are like the difference between a musket revolver and a Gatling gun. When you think about the fact that the Supreme Court in U.S. v. Jones just 2 years ago ruled on GPS trackers in cars, and that's something that the police have been doing since the late 1990s. Yeah. They just got around to calling that unconstitutional. The technological capacity of a drone is so much greater than that of a helicopter, that of the naked eye, that it could take another 2 decades for the courts to catch up. And what we're seeing right now is an evolution in technology which is really outpacing our current, our historical checks and balances system on Fourth Amendment protection.
Okay, yeah.
So the real danger of the drone is not the machine itself, but its capacity to surveil without any legal precedent at all. And we're talking really, silent, unobservable, high-powered microphones, heat-sensing technology that can see through walls, that can hear through windows, and the kinds of things that there just aren't laws for yet. And so, I think that, do individual police officers want to go out and violate the Fourth Amendment? I don't think so, not necessarily. But does policing policy sometimes tend towards the overzealous? And can that have implications on Fourth Amendment protections? I think it absolutely can.
Yeah,
and that's why, we would advocate to tread cautiously when it comes to expanding the state's ability to pry into your home. I think it's, and I think that that's pretty common sense. I don't think that that's being overly alarmist or conspiracy theory.
You're right. It does muddy the water, doesn't it? It's not a black and white issue. From that perspective, from a certain perspective, it's not a black and white issue. Now we're saying, what difference does it make if a cop was walking down the block, just observing what was going on, or a drone was flying overhead? But the drone can listen in on personal telephone, personal telephone conversations, or even
mobile phone.
Just conversations between. Because of the sensitivity of the microphone, right? Microphone. And by the way, Matt, that the woman I was with, that's my niece, by the way, that you got pictures of. And, that didn't go over very well, did it? Anyway, but that's what happens. And how are you addressing that?
Well, what we do at the Bill of Rights Defense Committee is we try to cook up, toolkits for people to use in their own towns, to regulate the types of technologies that law enforcement are going to have access to in their own town. And we help build coalitions of interested parties. And the best part about working around constitutional issues is everybody has an interest in it, right? So we're not coming at it from a particular, we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't come at it with a particular slant. And we just find the stakeholders. Who are the people who are most at risk? And generally, when it comes to privacy, that's everybody. Yeah. So we find groups that are interested in that. We help give them the tools that can help them, regulate and make sure that these pieces of technology are implemented safely, constitutionally. And, we help give them the tools from the grassroots level to really make that change at home. And what we believe, and what I think has been proven true, is that the more cities and the more towns, small places like, every town USA, that kind of thing, the more places that kind of implement these types of privacy protections, the more you see a shift in national policy. Yeah. So it's what happens in small towns really
is a reflection of what can happen nationwide. And so we don't really believe that there's some sort of difference between small-town politics and national politics.
Right.
The national conversation is directed by the small town.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the going from state to state, and the states have to, have some kind of a law that protects us to in that state against the changes that people are, understanding of the 10 Bill of Rights. I mean, the 10 Bill of Rights should cover all the states, but now you're having to fight this on a battle to battle from state to state, issue to issue. It seems like it's all convoluted. Shouldn't there be somebody nationally that's saying, hey, you can't do that. This is going against the Constitution. It's flip-flopped around. We're having to fight it at the grassroots level.
Yeah, fight it state by state.
State by state. It's sad. It really is.
It is sad, but it makes sense when you think about it. And
it's the only way to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, frankly, I think that's how political changes always happen. It's always happened on the person-to-person level. It's happened on the small level, and then you see a big reflection as a result of that.
Yeah. Matt, hold your thought there. We just have to stop for a real quick break. We'll be right back. Don't go away, okay? All right, guys.
No, I'm not going to.
Matt, we have a studio guest that just has a comment and a question, okay? Could we have him take it over? All right.
Just want to say House Bill 3167. Vote yes on this for your representatives. It's to repeal Common Core. It has many signatures, and people are very against Common Core. It is a UN-sanctioned bill that passed, and it has to do with restrictive laws in education. Also, you mentioned constitutional tools a second ago. I was wondering what those were. Like, what do you mean by the tools?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so... Well, we got a pretty good example nationally speaking. I got two I'd like to talk about. One really quick is something that the Bill of Rights Defense Committee has worked on really hard, and we push a lot all over the place. It's called the LCRRA, the Local Civil Rights Restoration Act. It's a piece of model legislation you can take in any town, and it kind of covers the gamut. It covers the gamut across Fourth Amendment protections, across First Amendment protections, and it's sort of what it is. And you can look it up on our website. It's bordc.org. We've got copies of them out, and this has been put in place in I think over 400 cities nationally. And it it covers police abuse, it covers Fourth Amendment Protection Act, and what it does is it's a cause of action for people who had their rights violated. Whereas previously there wouldn't have been a local law other than the U.S. Constitution, and that could be a dicey argument to make. And when you have local regulation in place, then it strengthens the ability for a local city to respond to a potential Fourth Amendment threat. So that's, and the LCRA is pretty diverse, and it can be tailor-made for different towns. The second thing, that's a hyper-local thing. That's something that you can pass in your own town, no matter where you are. Statewide, we've been working on a coalition called the Off Now Coalition, and you can visit them at offnow, OFFONW.org, and I highly recommend that you do it because it's a really gorgeous-looking website. The Off Now Coalition is really geared towards NSA spying, and this is an example of really good state-level regulation that can have a major impact on national policy. And so what it does, the model legislation that we developed along with our coalitional partners, the 10th Amendment Center, what the Fourth Amendment Protection Act does, this is what it's being called in a lot of places that it goes in, is it restricts the NSA's access to municipal resources. So to break this down real quick, the NSA operates these massive data collection centers. And these massive data collection centers use power and water quite a bit. To give you an example, in 2007, Maryland State, the home of the NSA, where the headquarters, they had a first data collection center there, they maxed out the Maryland State power grid. They could not draw enough power from the state of Maryland in order to power their data collection. They looked outwards. They opened seven new data collection centers. They opened one in Bluffdale, Utah, the Utah Data Center. That thing takes 1.7 million gallons of water a day to cool the servers, a day, in southern Utah, in the middle of a crippling drought, unlike we've ever seen before. They're massive, massive resource consumers, and all of those resources come from the state, from contracts with the state. And the deal is, states are under no true obligation to partner with or participate in federal programs. Now, states can't tell the federal government what to do. There's this whole thing, the doctrine of preemption, the supremacy clause, and there's a hierarchy to governments, we're placing the federal government above that of the state in most instances. But the state doesn't have to go along with it. And so what the Fourth Amendment Protection Act does, and what we've sort of proposed, is this law which put in place would deny the NSA access to state municipal resources. That means no water. That means no power. That means no internet bandwidth, no trash collection, like none of that stuff. And effectively what that would do, and really the deal is there aren't private resource companies that can provide this kind of stuff. And it puts the federal government in a pickle because it's not like saying you can't operate a spying center here. It says, by all means, go ahead, find your own water, find your own power, open it up on federal land. And that stuff doesn't exist. So, it's really confrontational in the sense that it is a firm directive that says we're not going to stand for this.
They'll have to go to solar.
You're going to have to go somewhere else if you're going to want to do it. And so, and it does some other things. There are other impacts other than just water and power. When the federal government collects bulk data warrantless, just without any real warrant, that data gets used. And the people that it gets used by most frequently domestically is really the DEA in prosecuting the war on drugs. It's been used, we have records of it being used in homicide investigations, state-level investigations that really have no federal impact. And what happens is you can't ordinarily introduce evidence into a court of law unless you can back up where it came from. And so frequently, up until really the Snowden disclosures, people have been saying it came from the NSA, and that's been passing muster. But now that we know that the NSA has not been abiding by the Fourth Amendment, it creates a cause of action to challenge evidence introduced in state court that was collected without a warrant, which really it should have been done the whole time. So it brings state court evidentiary rules into compliance with the Fourth Amendment. The NSA operates these things called Centers for Academic Excellence, which is like straight out of a George Orwell novel. And the Center for Academic Excellence is where the federal government uses the poor state of higher education and provides really small amounts of money to fund computer science programs where the NSA gets to pick the curriculum. So they use state institutions, state universities, to basically create NSA training facilities, and that's where they recruit their members out of. The NSA is a pretty big operation, and they do a lot of their recruiting in universities at the school level. And this would deny the NSA access to higher education institutions if they're going to be training people on how to violate the Fourth Amendment. And the final thing that it does is it creates a prohibition against being a private corporation that then partners with a federal program that's going to be engaged in Fourth Amendment violations. And that's where, Edward Snowden, he didn't work directly for the NSA. He worked for Booz Allen. They're a third-party contractor. This would end the practice of outsourcing Fourth Amendment violations on the part of the federal government to private businesses. And it would bring, really what it does is it doesn't stop the NSA from doing anything. It tells the NSA, if you're going to do it, you have to do it constitutionally. Because, the Bill of Rights Defense Committee is certainly not anti-national security. The 10th Amendment Center is not anti-national. Nobody's arguing that we shouldn't have national security. What we're arguing is that national security at the cost of the Constitution is not security.
I like that.
It's not. And so what this bill does is it puts a mandate on, it mandates to the federal government. If you want to engage in these activities, you need to justify them. You need to justify them in a court of law, and it needs to be constitutional. Because the deal is the NSA does not have a particularly good track record in terms of stopping, these are billions and billions and billions of dollars that were poured into these programs that are not, they didn't stop the Boston Marathon bombing. You know what I mean? They have not done much in terms of justifying their expenditures. And what you see now, and this is kind of what I was talking about before when I was like, it makes sense when you think about it. You step back and you take a look at the really big picture. Under the Bush administration, you had a major proliferation of militarism abroad. You had Blackwater, you had, trillions and trillions of dollars being funded into the business of war. And under the Obama administration, since war abroad is unpopular with the Democratic Party and popular amongst the Democratic base, they've shifted that funding towards national security funding. And you see the same players stand to benefit. You see Boeing, you see Raytheon, weapons manufacturers, surveillance manufacturers, and it's like they want a piece of that pie. And with the marketplace of war drying up, they're looking at home. And they're looking for new marketplaces to use these technologies. The federal government didn't design the computers that do this data research. This isn't like a DARPA program. Those algorithms were developed by third-party programmers. They were paid handsomely for it. There's a lot of money to be made in violating civil liberties. And, that's, when you ask yourself, well, what's the point? This seems incomprehensible to me. Why would they be doing this on such a massive scale if it's so against the law? And the point is, there's nobody watching. Because of the Patriot Act, there is no oversight. And in the vacuum of oversight, with the capacity to spend a lot of money, they'll do it. And so this is, this is getting in the way of that.
Matt, you scare the heck out of me, Matt. I'm not going to sleep. You know that. My goodness, but you're right. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. That's a very, very astute perspective and observation. I never thought of it that way. That's excellent. By the way, we have someone on the line. Can we take this caller for you?
It's Jim in Bixby.
Jim in Bixby. Jim, you're on the line. Jim, if you could make it real quick, we only have about 3 more minutes to go.
Absolutely. Joe, Matt, enjoy the banter.
Thank you
for being on the show. Matt, I applaud so much what you and your organization do. Real quickly, I was inspired by listening to, I don't care a whole lot for the bozos in Washington, but I did happen to catch Rand Paul's CPAC speech from last week, and I loved that his 18-minute speech focused almost entirely on lost civil liberties and the Bill of Rights and talking about the Founding Fathers, and he got tremendous applause. Do you have much hope that there's a movement within Washington and the political arena towards liberty and freedom, or is that still a battle that's, is a long uphill battle?
Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, I'm here.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah. He says, what's your attitude? Do you think we're winning the battle or losing it? And we only have 2 minutes to go, so let's make this a 1-minute answer, and we'll have you a minute to close out. Okay?
I think we're winning. We're absolutely winning.
Great. Okay.
Time and time again. You got to think about it, man. We're a country that has overcome slavery. We are a country that has overcome so much. Major threats to the Constitution, Japanese internment. There have been moments where we have been severely tested. And I think that this is another one of those moments that if history is to repeat itself, we have come out on top. And as long as people press for civil liberties and don't reject the Constitution, then I think we're doing good.
Okay.
I don't think you should lose sleep.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. We have to turn you off. Jim, thank you so much for listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Appreciate you calling in. Matt, we only have a few seconds left. Would you tell our audience something about your organization, how they can contact you, or whatever else you want to add to that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We got Bill of Rights Defense Committee. It's BORDC.org. We got a great blog. We do a lot of policy analysis and keep you up to date on current events. We have some really good civil rights and civil liberties mailing lists that'll keep you abreast about what's going on in your state and how to plug in. And I highly encourage you, visit our website, check out our model legislation, check out our blog. You can reach me, Matthew, at BORDC.org if you want to email me directly. We got a whole organizing team, and we're really, we're always looking for people to partner with, care about civil liberties work.
Okay, Matt, thank you so much. We're just about out of time, and thank you so much. And I hope you will accept our invitation to return to this program at a future date.
I'd be happy to.
All right, thank you so much. Good night. Okay, is this it? How much time do I have? All right, this is the end of the program. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Comments at libertytalkradio.com. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.